Welcome, deep divers, and a really warm welcome if you're joining us for the very first time here at PodX Studio.
Great to have you with us.
For anyone new here, our mission is pretty simple. We take a whole mountain of information, could be articles, research, or like today, our own notes, and we boil it down.
Yeah, down to those glittering nuggets of insight.
Exactly. It's your fast track to being genuinely clued in, packed with facts you maybe didn't know, and hopefully enough interest to keep you hooked.
And today, wow, we're stepping right into a really pivotal era. Our deep dive is into the modern history of India. We're zooming in on the 18th century. It was this period defined by, well, a collision, really. Two huge forces.
Which were?
The formidable expanding Maratha Empire on one side, and on the other, the arrival, soon to be very disruptive, of European powers.
That's right. We're talking about a time of these massive foundational shifts, stuff that really set the stage for, well, pretty much everything that came after.
That's
We'll start by looking at the incredible rise of the Marathas, their expansion. Then we'll get into the challenges they faced, both inside and out, that led to their decline.
And then we switch gears.
Yeah, then we pivot to understand why Europeans were so desperate to find new sea routes to India and, what actually happened when they first landed. It's a big story.
It really is. Ambition, power, transformation, it's all in there. Understanding these shifts isn't just about, dates and battles. It's about grasping the whole trajectory of modern India.
Couldn't agree more. So let's jump back to the 18th century.
Let's do it.
Okay, so diving into the heart of the Maratha Empire, the story really kicks off with the rise of the Peshwas. These were prime ministers, basically.
Right, but they became much more than that over time. They went from advisors to really the architects of the empire, fundamentally changed the power dynamic.
And our first key figure here is Balaji Vishwanath. He was Peshwa from, 1713 to 1720?
That's the one.
Yeah.
And crucially, he got his title Senakarati Organizer of Forces directly from Shahu, the Maratha king.
So he had royal backing.
He did, but he didn't just, sit back. He engineered his power, his biggest legacy, making the Peshwa job hereditary and incredibly powerful.
That's a huge move, centralizing power like that.
Absolutely. It shaped the empire for decades, for better and maybe for worse later on. It really put the Peshwa at the core of everything.
And he was sharp politically, too, wasn't he? In 1719, he got these major rights from the Mughal emperor Farrukhsiyar.
Yeah, that was critical. Official recognition for Shahu as king, and permission to collect chauth and sardishmukhi.
Which are basically taxes, right? A slice of the revenue.
Essentially, yeah. A fourth and a tenth of the revenue from 6 big Mughal provinces in the Deccan. Think Carnatic, Mysore, included in that.
Wow. That's significant leverage.
It was. And then, that same year, 1719, he actually helped the Sayyid brothers boot out Emperor Farrukhsiyar. Smart politics.
Definitely laying the groundwork. Which brings us to his son.
Bajirao Peshwa from 1720 to 1740, known as Thorao, Bajirao the Elder. And look, probably the most influential of all 9 Peshwas. People call him a military genius.
A military genius, high praise.
Well, he was a master of guerrilla tactics. Right up there with Shivaji himself. Get this. Fought over 41 battles, never lost one.
Never lost. 41 battles. That's astonishing.
It really is.
Yeah.
And his ambition matched his skill. He planned this huge northward expansion. The goal, Maratha rule from Ettok to Cuttack.
Talk to Cuttack.
And
It
it's something
covers a
like
massive chunk of the subcontinent.
Huge. He also pushed this idea of Hindu Padchahi. Now, it's complex, not just religious, but a strategic vision, kind of a pan-Indian indigenous rule to, counter the Mughals in the United States under the Marathas.
And he backed it up with wins.
Oh, yeah. Famously beat his big rival, Nizam-ul-Mulk, at Pakht in Bhopal. That cemented those revenue rights in the Deccan.
And territory, too. I remember reading he took places from the Portuguese.
He did. Captured Salsette and Bassein from them in 1722. And bold moves, too, raided Mughal Delhi itself in 1737.
Wow. But it wasn't all just military, right? He made administrative changes.
Yes. Crucially, he moved the capital from Satara to Pune in 1728. That became the new center of power.
And how did he manage this expanding empire? It must have been difficult to control.
That's a great question. He started this confederacy system, basically assigned different regions, spheres of influence, to key Maratha chiefs.
Like who?
Yeah, the Bansal, Ghorpade, Gaikwad, Nawalkar, Holkars, Puars, Scindia, prominent families. The idea was they'd rule their areas autonomously, but in the name of King Shahu.
So like the Gaikwad in Baroda, Sindhi in Gwalior, that sort of thing.
Exactly that. It allowed for decentralized rule, which helped with expansion,
Mm.
but it also kind of planted the seeds for later internal rivalries, less central control.
Interesting trade-off. Okay, so that leads us to the empire's absolute peak, right? Under Balaji Bajirao.
Yes, Peshwa from 1740 to 1761, also known as Nana Saheb Peshwa. And under him, the Maratha Empire reached its zenith, spread across most of northwest, east, and central India. It was vast.
And there was a big political shift during his time, something called the Sangola Agreement.
That's right, 1750, the Sangola Agreement. It basically made the Maratha king a roi fainéant, a do-nothing king, more or less.
A figurehead.
Pretty much. The Peshwa Balaji Bajirao became the real effective head of the Maratha Confederacy. Ramraja stayed on as the titular Chhatrapati, but the power was clearly with the Peshwa now. It was official.
And he was dominant militarily, too.
Immensely. Defeated Alivardi Khan, the Nawab of Bengal. After that, something like a third of the entire Indian subcontinent was under Maratha control or influence. It's staggering.
A third, wow. And he made a deal with the Mughals, too.
He did in 1752. Agreed to protect the Mughal Empire from internal threats, external enemies, whatever. In return, the Marathas got the chath from the northwest provinces, plus all the revenue from Agra and Ajmer.
So they were basically acting as the protectors of the Mughal throne for a price.
That's a good way to put it. And actually, honoring this agreement led them further north, right up to Attock.
Ah, yes, the Battle of Attock in 1758. They captured Attock and Peshawar.
They did. Reached the banks of the Indus River. An incredible display of power, the peak of their expansion. But stretching that far also thinned their resources. And crucially, it brought them face to face with another major power.
The Afghans.
Exactly. Ahmed Shah Abdali. Conflict was almost inevitable.
Right. So this marks the turning point, the beginning of the decline. And the big event here is obviously the Third Battle of Panipat, 1761.
The cataclysm, yes. But first, let's talk about Ahmed Shah Abdali, or Durrani.
He was Nadir Shah's general, right? Invaded India multiple times.
8 times, incredibly. Raided deep into India, right down to Mathura. He'd actually captured Delhi back in 1757, left an Afghan caretaker there.
But the Marathas kicked him out.
They did. In 1758, the Maratha chief Raghunath Rao ousted Mujibud-Dowla, Abdali's agent, from Delhi. Even captured Punjab. That was a direct challenge to Abdali. He had to respond.
So Panipat was Abdali's response.
It was. And here's the thing. Despite their agreement to protect the Mughals, the Marathas, led by Sadashiv Rao Bao, ended up fighting Abdali directly at Panipat.
Why? Why fight him directly if they were allied with the Mughals?
That's a complex question historians debate. Perhaps overconfidence, perhaps miscalculation, perhaps feeling they had to assert their own dominance directly. Whatever the reason, the result was devastating.
A total defeat for the Marathas.
Worse than that. They lost, as you said, the cream of their army. So many key leaders killed. Balaji Bajirao himself died shortly after, supposedly from the shock and grief of losing his son and cousin in the battle.
Just imagine the psychological impact, not just the military loss, but the human cost.
Exactly. It wasn't just a battle lost, it felt like the end of an era. Their political prestige took a massive hit.
And this is where the other thread of our story comes in strongly, the English East India Company. This defeat must have been music to their ears.
Oh, absolutely. It created this huge power vacuum, especially in North India, a golden opportunity for the company to consolidate its own position, particularly in Bengal, where they were already gaining ground.
It seems almost too convenient timing-wise. Were they just lucky, or were they actively waiting for something like this?
Probably a bit of both.
Yeah.
They were certainly opportunistic, but, the Maratha story wasn't quite over yet. There was a flicker of resurgence.
Under Madhav Rao first, from 1761 to 1772.
That's him. A remarkable figure, really. He came in after the disaster of Panipat and actually managed to pull things together, at least for a while.
What did he achieve?
He tackled the internal squabbles, defeated the Nizam, and Mysore forced them to pay tribute again. He reasserted control over North India, too.
The Maratha resurrection, they call it sometimes.
Exactly. He brought the Rohillas, Jats, Rajput states back into line. He tried to fix the administration, the treasury, sort out the accounts, even escorted the Mughal Emperor Shah Alam back to Delhi in 1772.
That's quite a comeback.
It was. But even as he was reviving things, that confederacy structure was solidifying. The big chiefs, Gaikwads, Holkars, Scindias, were becoming more like semi-independent states. It was the next logical step from Bajirao's system, but it weakened central control.
So a mixed legacy then?
In a way. And sadly, his revival was cut short. He died young from tuberculosis in 1772, a massive loss. Who knows what might have happened if he had lived longer?
Yeah, a big what if. And after him, things went downhill faster.
Pretty much the final act. His successor, Narayan Rao, only lasted a year or so, assassinated in 1773.
Assassinated. By whom?
Allegedly on the orders of his uncle Raghunath Rao, who then tried to grab the throne himself.
Raghunath Rao again. He seems like trouble.
He was, but he wasn't recognized by the influential ministers, especially Nana Bharat. So Raghunath Rao was overthrown. What does he do?
Let me guess. Runs to the British.
You got it. He asked the British for help, and that directly kicked off the First Anglo-Maratha War from 1775 to 1782.
But didn't the Marathas actually win a key battle in that war? Telegon.
They did. Nana scored a victory against the British in 1776, led to the Treaty of Tirandar. Eventually, the war ended with the Treaty of Salbai in 1782.
What did that treaty decide?
It basically restored the situation as it was before the war, the status quo. The British got to keep Salsette, an island near Bombay, but they had to drop Raghunath Rao's cause. So, a temporary setback for British ambitions.
A temporary reprieve for the Marathas. Who came next?
A Salwe Madhav Rao, who was Narayan Rao's son, he was crowned when he was literally an infant 40 days old.
40 days old. So who ran the empire?
Nanafed Davis, mainly, along with his powerful council of 12 ministers called the Barabhai Council. They managed things during the young Peshwa's minority, trying to keep things stable amidst all the internal rivalries. They resisted the British quite effectively for a time.
But eventually...
Eventually, we get to the last Peshwa, Baji Rao II, reigned from 1796 to 1818. And honestly, history paints him as the weakest, most incompetent of the lot.
What did he do wrong?
His biggest mistake, arguably, was signing the Treaty of Bassein with the British in 1802. That treaty was a killer. It basically handed over effective control of the Maratha heartland, the Deccan, and Western India to the British.
He just signed it away.
Under pressure, certainly, but yes.
Yeah.
It sealed their fate. The Third Anglo-Maratha War followed in 1818. Baji Rao II was defeated, pensioned off by the British, and the Peshwa territories were annexed. End of the line.
And his adopted son was Nana Sahib, the one from the 1857 revolt.
The very same. That connection carries forward.
So looking back at this whole decline, what were the main factors? It seems like a combination of things.
Definitely. You can tick them off. First, the successors to Shivaji and even the later Peshwas just weren't as capable. The Peshwa office becoming hereditary, maybe concentrated power, but didn't guarantee quality.
And Panipat, that looms large.
Huge. The Third Battle of Panipat, 1761. Crippling military loss, massive blow to prestige.
Yeah.
And as we said, it opened that door wide for the English East India Company.
Right. What else?
The lack of a really settled, stable administrative system across the whole Confederacy. It often led to, squeezing the peasantry for revenue, which caused resentment.
Oppression, basically.
Yeah, and then there was the loss of key leaders towards the end of the 18th century. People like Ahalyabai Holkar, Peshwa Madhav Rao II, Nana Fadnavis himself died in 1800. Losing experienced leadership at such a critical time, it hurt.
It sounds like the structure itself was fragile.
The historian J.N. Sarkar put it well. He said the Maratha state's cohesion was not organic, but artificial, accidental, and therefore precarious. There wasn't that strong central glue holding the Confederacy together when push came to shove.
And economically.
They didn't really innovate, still focused mainly on land revenue, didn't develop new economic engines.
And finally, the British tactics.
Superior diplomacy, no doubt. They were masters at playing the different Maratha chiefs off against each other. Divide and conquer. Pick them off one by one. Classic strategy ruthlessly applied.
A sobering end to a powerful empire. Okay, so while the Marathas are declining, the Europeans are arriving. Why the sudden push for a sea route? What changed?
Good question. For centuries, trade happened over land. But things started getting tricky. The Roman Empire declined way back in the 7th century. Then the Arabs gained dominance in Egypt and Persia.
Severing the direct link.
Exactly. Made it harder, more expensive for Europeans to get those Indian goods, spices, silks, gems.
And then the Ottomans took Constantinople.
1453, huge moment. Constantinople, modern Istanbul, falls to the Ottoman Turks. Now, all goods heading west from India pretty much had to go through Arab middlemen under Ottoman oversight.
More costs, more control by others.
Right. Plus the Red Sea route, controlled by Islamic rulers who slapped on heavy tariffs. So the existing land and sea routes were basically blocked or too expensive. Europeans felt compelled they had to find another way. By sea. Around Africa, if possible.
And Europe itself was changing in the 15th century.
Massively. The fall of Constantinople wasn't just about trade routes. It intensified the Christian-Muslim rivalry. Ottoman rulers controlled the trade. Meanwhile, in Europe, you had this dominant Orthodox church ideology, kind of a dark age with limited innovation.
But Constantinople falling changed that.
It was a catalyst. Many Christians fled Constantinople, came back to Europe. They started challenging the church's authority. This is seen as one of the big sparks for the Renaissance. It pushed Europe out of that stagnation.
Towards science and exploration.
Exactly. Scientific thinking, new ideas, plus technology was improving shipbuilding, navigation tools like the compass and astrolabe got better, agriculture became more efficient, leading to more prosperity.
And more prosperity means more demand for
Luxury goods and spices, especially spices. They were crucial back then, not just for flavor, but for preserving meat before refrigeration. The new meat industry needed them badly.
So all these factors are pushing towards finding new routes and sources.
Precisely. And it all feeds into this economic system called mercantilism, big from the 16th to 18th centuries.
What's the core idea of mercantilism?
The basic idea was that the world's wealth is fixed, like a pie. To get richer, your nation needs a bigger slice. How? Maximize exports, minimize imports using tariffs, hoard gold and silver.
And colonies fit in how?
Colonies were essential. They were sources of cheap raw materials in captive markets where you could sell your finished goods. This whole system just screamed, go find colonies, go control trade routes.
So the adventure begins. Who was funding and crewing these voyages?
It was often a collaboration. Northern Europeans might provide the money and the sailors. The Genoese, with their long maritime tradition, often provided the ships and the technical know-how, the navigators.
And wasn't there a Portuguese prince who was really keen?
Prince Henry the Navigator, yes, he was obsessed with finding sea routes to India, really pushed exploration.
And didn't Portugal and Spain kind of divide the world up between them?
They did. The Treaty of Tordesillas drew an imaginary line down the Atlantic, everything non-Christian to the east. Portugal's sphere, everything to the west, Spain's.
So that basically gave Portugal a free run at the east.
In terms of Spanish competition, yes. Cleared the path for them to focus their efforts eastward, around Africa.
Which leads us to the famous explorers. Columbus first.
Christopher Columbus, sailing for Spain, heads west in 1492, hoping for India. Finds the Americas instead. Big oops, or maybe happy accident, depending on your perspective.
And then Vasco da Gama.
Vasco da Gama, sailing for Portugal. Takes the other route, around the Cape of Good Hope at the southern tip of Africa. And in May 1498, he reaches Calicut, on the southwest coast of India. He found it.
The sea route was open. What was the immediate impact?
Seismic. Totally transformative.
Mm-hmm.
Before this, as we said, Arabs dominated the sea trade in the Indian Ocean. The Portuguese arrived with superior ships, cannons, naval power the Arabs couldn't match.
So they didn't just trade, they fought.
Oh, yeah. They immediately set about dismantling the Arab trade network and establishing their own dominance. It wasn't just about commerce. It was about control. They started conquering key coastal points, Goa, fortifying them. This was direct European territorial ambition from the get-go.
What happened when da Gama met the local ruler in Calicut, the Zamorin?
He met him, yes. The established Arab merchants there were obviously not happy about this new competitor. But da Gama did manage to get a letter allowing trade rights.
But there was a problem.
Yeah, a bit of a hiccup. The Portuguese goods weren't that impressive to the Indians, and critically, da Gama couldn't or wouldn't pay the customs duties in gold, which was expected.
Which tells you something about their long-term plans.
Exactly. It wasn't just about fitting into the existing system. The Portuguese goal was clear. Monopolize the entire eastern trade, kick out all competitors, especially the Arabs, force everyone to trade on their terms.
And where did they set up shop initially?
Kochi, just south of Calicut, became their first headquarters. But later, they captured Goa further north, and that became the real center of Portuguese power in India for centuries.
Wow. What a journey we've covered. From the Marathas reaching their absolute peak under the Peshwas like Bajirao at the Way.
To that devastating blow at Panipat and the slow decline, facing internal divisions and the rise of the British.
And then overlaying that, this completely separate story kicking off Europe's desperate search for India, driven by economics, religion, technology.
Culminating in Vasco da Gama's arrival and the beginning of direct European intervention and dominance.
These two massive narratives, the Maratha story and the European arrival, they just completely intertwine in this period. They really lay the groundwork for everything that follows in modern Indian history, the political landscape, India's place in the world. It's all being reshaped right here.
It absolutely is. You see the dynamics of empire building, internal weaknesses being exploited, the sheer impact of new technologies and economic drivers. It makes you think, doesn't it? When you look at how the Maratha Confederacy, despite its military might, ultimately fragmented, and how the Europeans managed to gain a foothold, what does that tell us about the fundamental vulnerabilities of any large, diverse empire, even today? How do those lessons about cohesion, central authority, and economic adaptation still play out?
That's a really powerful thought to leave our listeners with. A huge thank you for tuning into PodX Studio for this deep dive. We really hope you found this journey back into 18th century India as fascinating as we did.
Hope you enjoyed it.
If you did enjoy this exploration, please do us a favor, hit that like button, definitely subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and make sure you ring that notification bell icon. That way, you won't miss our next deep dive.
Stay curious.
Until next time, everyone.